welcome to the Sleep is a Skill podcast. I am so grateful that we were able to snag you for a few minutes to talk about sleep optimization. And so for anyone listening, a couple quick things. Where are we? We are at the Biohacking Congress in Las Vegas. So I'm going to read you a little bit. Now, there are over 30 plus great speakers at Biohacking and 30 plus health companies, and they're all at this exhibit space as well. So we are very excited to learn from the great biohackers, doctors, and scientists, as well as exploring their products and digital health devices. It can really be a life-changing weekend for many people, either attending virtually or online, and we recommend checking out the Biohacking Congress website and get your ticket for the next one. So the next one is going to be in Boston, June 11th and 12th, 2022. We will both be there. Very excited. And I actually believe they're going to be moving fully to in-person. So really getting people together in real life. And so definitely check that out. And now, having said that, would love to have you just share a little bit about what got you into this space and how this connects to sleep.
Well, thanks. It's a great honor
Yes.
to be with you. And I've had a great time here at the Biohacking Congress. But yeah, I've been in academic medicine and science for the past 22 years, and I've spent my entire professional and academic career studying nitric oxide.
Amazing.
I got into it right in the early 2000s, shortly after Nobel Prize was awarded. We knew it was an important molecule, but there was still a lot of unanswered questions in terms of how the body makes nitric oxide, what goes wrong in people that can't make it, and then how do you fix that? And so we've spent 20 years answering those questions. We've made a lot of seminal discoveries, led to dozens of issued U.S. international patents on product technology. So that's why we're here. We now understand that nitric oxide is probably one of the most important molecules produced in the human body. Without it, your body cannot heal, or when you lose it, you get sick. And so for biohacking, this is probably, by my estimation, one of the best things you can do to biohack and prevent the onset and progression of chronic disease.
So starting at the basics, can you explain nitric oxide to people? What does this look like? Is this just about supplements? Can we create it ourselves? Kind of breaking it down for us.
Yeah, so good question. It's naturally produced. So it's a molecule that's produced naturally in the lining of the blood vessels. The older we get, the less we make, and that's what's responsible for age-related disease. So what we're able to do is, now that we understand what goes wrong in people that can't make it, we can employ strategies either through diet and lifestyle or some product technology that if your body can't make nitric oxide, then we do it for you. And we're able to replenish and restore the body's own production of this molecule. But it's a signaling molecule. It's how cells in the body communicate. It's a neurotransmitter in the central nervous system. It controls blood flow and blood flow regulation throughout the entire body, responsible for perfusing every organ, tissue, and cell in the body. And then it's how our immune system fights off invading pathogens. So when you lose the ability to produce nitric oxide, a lot of things go wrong.
Absolutely. And for anyone listening, they might say, well, okay, yeah, but like a lot of things go downhill as you get older. What makes this so important that we need to really begin here? And how in the world does this relate to sleep?
Yeah. Well, the science tells us that it's the functional loss of nitric oxide that precedes the structural changes in the lining of the blood vessel by many years, sometimes decades. So when your body starts losing the ability to generate nitric oxide, you lose perfusion, you get an elevation in blood pressure, and then inflammation, oxidative stress, and immune dysfunction occur. And those are hallmarks of every single chronic disease. So whether you have vascular dementia, Alzheimer's, or heart disease, kidney disease, sexual dysfunction, it's all about loss of regulation of blood flow. And that's what sets the stage for chronic disease. But if you can restore nitric oxide production, prevent the inflammation, oxidative stress, and immune dysfunction, then these diseases don't set in. So you can completely prevent the onset and progression of chronic disease. Now, the important thing about sleep is, that's when our body regenerates and we heal. The principles of sleep are delivering oxygen when you're sleeping so your body can generate energy, mobilize stem cells. And so nitric oxide is critically important in that, because in people, especially with obstructive sleep apnea, you need oxygen to make nitric oxide. So if you're hypoxic or you become apneic at night, then your body can't make nitric oxide, your body cannot heal, you don't recover, you wake up tired.
Got it. Okay, so then it's clearly connected on this concern for anyone listening around, because anyone that's listening right now, we know that you're either struggling with your sleep or looking to optimize your sleep. So would the solution then just be, all right, fine, I'm going to take some nitric oxide supplements, or is that a part of the conversation and more behavioral based things? What might we do in this conversation to improve this number?
Well, I tell people to improve nitric oxide, you got to do two things.
Yeah.
Stop doing the things that disrupt it and start doing the things that promote it.
Great.
So when we look at what disrupts nitric oxide production, it's the use of mouthwash. So you're killing the good bacteria.
Underscore that, people. If you didn't hear that, he really said mouthwash. And this is something in Biohacking Congress. I've seen so many people doing stories of stop your mouthwash after your great talk. So really listen to this part, because this is something you can actually do tonight. Yeah.
So it's very clear that if you use mouthwash, your blood pressure goes up. You lose the protective benefits of exercise. So you're disrupting the oral microbiome. And these bacteria are responsible for generating nitric oxide. There's 200 million Americans that wake up every morning and use mouthwash, and 200 million Americans have an unsafe elevation in blood pressure.
Yes.
It's not a coincidence. So that's one. If you're using mouthwash, you have to stop. If you're using fluoride-based toothpaste, you have to stop. Fluoride's an antiseptic, it's a neurotoxin, and it kills your thyroid function.
Yeah.
And then antacids. If you're on antacids, you have to stop those, because that completely shuts down nitric oxide production. So when you do those three things, eliminate those three things, your body can actually regenerate and heal. And then you start doing the things that promote nitric oxide. Moderate physical exercise, more green leafy vegetables, and like an infrared sauna, certain wavelengths of light will stimulate nitric oxide production. And then if all that fails, then you can take a nitric oxide product before you go to sleep.
Sure. Okay. And about the red light, is there a particular type of red light that we need? Is there a strength or any call-outs there?
Yeah, there's certain wavelengths of light that'll generate nitric oxide. So for instance, in the far UV range, it'll actually cleave nitric oxide bound to proteins or thiols on proteins. But it's the near infrared that can actually release nitric oxide bound to metals. So when your body generates nitric oxide, it's a gas. It'll bind to proteins or bind to metals, and then you can liberate that through certain wavelengths of light. But it's the red light that seems to be the most effective.
Great. Okay. And so for people with they're hearing, all right, fine, then maybe I could get some supplements. What could they bring that in? Like, what is the structure of that? Do they do that? Is there a certain dosage that you suggest? I know it's bio-individual, but what are the guides there?
So we've developed technology that's an orally disintegrating tablet, meaning that if your body can't make nitric oxide, we do it for you. So when you put the lozenge in your mouth, it'll slowly disintegrate over time, probably over 4 to 6 minutes. And then during that time, we're generating nitric oxide gas. But we've also restored the ability for your body to make nitric oxide on its own. We fixed the underlying issues with the reason you can't make nitric oxide. So for people who have trouble sleeping or getting restful sleep, we recommend taking the lozenge right before you go to bed. So we're titrating up your nitric oxide levels, and you actually get better oxygen delivery when you sleep if your nitric oxide levels are optimized.
And there are test strips, on the market. Is that something that you suggest for people to use?
It's a good tool. I developed those test strips about 12 years ago as a way to give people a first sense of their nitric oxide status.
Sure.
There's no blood labs you can measure or order, so this was really the only way. So if you're low, you're low.
Yeah.
Then there's no false negatives. There are false positives. So you can have all the symptoms of nitric oxide deficiency, but yet if you've got an active oral infection, then the test strip will reveal a false positive.
Oh, interesting. And you mentioned that as we get older, it tends to go down. So do you see like kids or the youth having higher levels with those test strips just regularly?
Well, the test strips are really a measure of the presence of the nitrate-reducing bacteria.
Okay.
So, kids, there's two ways the body makes nitric oxide. So in young people, they have good endothelial function, so they're making sufficient nitric oxide in the lining of their blood vessels. The older we get, the less we make in our blood vessels, so the more we depend upon the dietary influences from food and the presence of the oral bacteria.
Got it. Okay. And quick question, some of the other benefits, and I know we're focusing, of course, on sleep, but you did mention about high blood pressure. That tends to be another benefit when we take nitric oxide, often a lowering of that. Is that accurate?
Yes, so when nitric oxide is a vasodilator, when it's produced in the body, it dilates the blood vessels and lowers blood pressure.
Yes.
So with 2 out of 3 Americans having an unsafe elevation in blood pressure, most of that is due to nitric oxide deficiency. So when we replete this molecule, then we can see a normalization of blood pressure. We see better oxygen delivery. We see, it's part of the insulin signaling pathway. So diabetics see a big benefit from this, and athletes. It's a sports performance enhancement.
Huge. And real quick, any contraindications if people have low blood pressure when taking, or is there, because we had another guest on the podcast mentioning that there seems to almost be a normalizing or equalizing effect. Right. Is that true?
That's true. And we did the first test before we ever brought this to market years ago. So if you have normal blood pressure, low blood pressure, it doesn't further drop your blood pressure, and that's very important.
Okay.
So it's mainly maintaining homeostasis and normal blood pressure.
A smart supplement. It kind of manages itself. Okay, fantastic. So then I know we're doing a laser conversation with you today, and like speaking to you, I have to pull myself back because I know there's so much more that you have. So what we want to shift to now is how are you managing your sleep given all that you know on these topics, and how much, even just if you're focusing on the area of nitric oxide, how that affects so much of your behavior and the things you're choosing to do and your nutrition and all of that. So from that place, the first question is, what does your nightly sleep routine look like right now?
Well, I guess it depends on whether I'm home or on the road.
Very good call out.
Probably
yes.
50% of my time is spent on an airplane and in hotel rooms.
Yes.
But regardless, I try to go to bed early at a decent hour. I typically don't watch TV prior to bed.
Sure.
But when I'm at home, I sit in an infrared sauna before I shower, and then I typically spend about an hour in a hyperbaric chamber.
Do you?
Before bed. And that's been kind of a game changer for modifying my sleep patterns.
Really? Are you measuring your sleep at all or not?
I don't. No.
Okay. All right. Well, if you do, please send us some of your data, because I would like to see what that all looks like. So around an hour in the hyperbaric chamber, and anyone listening, is that a recommendation that you would make for people if they have access to hyperbaric chamber?
Hyperbaric is very important because it's high pressure oxygen, and if you take our nitric oxide prior to the hyperbaric, then you open up the small blood vessels and basically enhance oxygen delivery in the hyperbaric.
Very
But
cool.
yeah, if you have access to hyperbaric, the science is very clear. It's very, very helpful for you.
Amazing. Okay. Well, I just had the opportunity to do a 20-minute session today in the Biohacking Congress, and if you come in Boston, you can likely do the same. So thank you for sharing that part. The second question would be, what is on your nightstand, or maybe your proverbial nightstand if you're traveling or on the go? So that could include apps, supplements. Of course, we've spoken to nitric oxide, so that might be more there. Ambient, environment, anything else to call out?
I keep mainly 2 things on my nightstand. One is a diffuser for essential oils that I'll put on before, and then the other is it's a device that's kind of a dual-purpose device. It's an ozone generator.
Oh, nice.
But it's also an ionizer.
Ooh.
So I'll typically turn on the ozone to kind of clear the air, and then after the ozone, I'll put on an ionizer that ionizes the air.
Ooh, is there any brand recommendations that you have, or one that
I
you
use Therasage. They seem to have the best.
Very
devices.
Cool. I love that. Okay.
And then I turn off all the lights. There's no lights on, so it has to be really dark.
Fantastic. Yes.
And I turn my AC on about 67 degrees.
Good.
So it's cold and dark.
We'd love to hear that. Make it like a cave, folks.
That's right.
Okay. And then the last question, you might have already mentioned it with the hyperbaric chamber, but what has made and in alignment with nitric oxide, what has made the biggest change to your sleep game, or kind of the biggest aha moment in managing your sleep?
Well, the hyperbaric is, and then, for me, it's hard to turn off the brain chatter because it's got so much going on, so much thinking, so many battles we're fighting.
You seem so calm, cool, and collected.
Well, I've had to learn to do that.
You've done
got
it,
to,
yes.
manage stress, and so I just try to, tune all that out and turn that off to where I can get some restful sleep at night.
Nice.
But it takes a number of these things to do it, and it's a practice. It's taken me many years to dismiss the stress and be able to lie down and get restful sleep.
And presumably, with some of these foundational pieces like the nitric oxide, then in alignment with that, the high blood pressure, instability in glucose, all of these things that just make it an uphill battle to manage that. When you get some of that handled, that can be that bi-directional relationship to really help calm that. So really great points. And for anyone listening, because we really, truly only did just scratch the surface, so I know you had a fantastic presentation, and you'll be giving, I believe, another one in Boston as well. But how can people learn more about you, your products, etc.?
Well, I have an educational website. My job is to educate and inform so consumers can make informed choices and educated choices. So that's drnathansbryan.com. There's a 6-minute video on there that'll kind of tell you everything you need to know about nitric oxide. I do a monthly blog to provide some practical, kind of real-life situations on how to enhance nitric oxide. I'm on Instagram at drnathansbryan, LinkedIn, and of course we're all searchable now. So
yes, exactly. If all else fails, Google.
That's
okay,
right.
And you're really the king of nitric oxide, so I'm sure you're right on up there. So definitely check him out. Years and years of knowledge here. And finally, the last topic that we really didn't get into, but you also had some great information too around immune health and what that can do, the relationship with nitric oxide, and certainly that's obviously a hot topic in the last few years given pandemics and etc. So there's much more here, and how that all interplays with your sleep. So thank you for taking the time. Yes, this is great, and looking forward to connecting with you more down the road, and certainly in Boston.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.